How's it going, Yankee fans? My name is Alex with my co-host here, Ryan Garcia. And the latest rumor today is that the Yankees covet Pittsburgh Pirates star outfield Bryan Reynolds. Now, he's going to cost a boatload of prospects. There's no question about it. In my opinion, seems a little bit unrealistic, but it's a rumor nonetheless that we do want to kind of discuss with you guys and maybe present what it would take to acquire a guy like him. He's going to be a free agent in 2026. He's only arbitration eligible in 2024. So the biggest argument I can make is that if the Yankees do end up losing Aaron Judge in free agency, at the very least, you have Bryan Reynolds to take over in center field, and you can kind of smooth over the blow. Alternatively, if you extend Aaron Judge because Reynolds is so cheap, you have one of the best outfields in baseball with Stanton. You still got Hicks under contract. Gallo's probably gone in this scenario. Overall, you're looking at this and saying Reynolds would be an unbelievable upgrade. He is a great player. He is a great batter. He's a switch hitter. He would probably destroy his 15 homers this season. He'd probably destroy in the short right portion of Yankee Stadium. But I do want to discuss what he would cost, the realistic nature of this, and just how great of a player he is, Ryan. Before we do, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great. Yesterday, another, great win. As you mentioned, the Yankees outfield situation kind of very much looking more so like the Yankees shouldn't just go on and get a cheap upgrade, because how much better is that upgrade going to be over Aaron Hicks at this point, right? You don't want to go out and cheap out on the position, get some random no-name guy who isn't very good. You play him over Hicks and he's marginally better or just as good, and you're like, I didn't get much better. I traded assets to get nothing. Reynolds is that big splash, right? I think you and I could both agree. If Jeff Passan ever tweets out the breaking, the Yankees and Pittsburgh Pirates are closing in on a deal to acquire outfielder Bryan Reynolds, my jaw would drop. It's that type of a big deal. The type of move, it's very similar to like when the Yankees got Cole, where it's just you're like, oh my god, this is the move. Reynolds is a guy who could also benefit from not having to play center field. If you look at his Statcast, Savant is OAA. Right, outs above average. It's uses TrackMan to look at your ability to make catches. Right, so your estimated success rate and your success rate. Should you catch that ball, and should you not, or how likely is it that you catch the ball, and then how often do you catch the ball? Right, so he's expected to catch 89% of the ball or make 89% of the plays that he's had attempts at, and he's only converted 87% of them, which has given him a -5 outs above average, which isn't great. But in left field, he's a better defensive outfielder, right? In left field, he's consistently been an above average defender, while in center field it's been shaky. His arm isn't great either, which is something that you can definitely, put to the back burner in left field. We saw this with Gardner, where Gardner never really had a great arm, but he was one of the best defensive left fielders the Yankees have had in a very long time, because he was very rangy and he could play a big left field for the Yankees. Reynolds is very much like that defensively, where it's the range, it's the ability to track the ball, it's the natural speed, it's not the arm, it's not the crazy gun like Judge has. And he would definitely work in left field for the Yankees very well. The bat is, as you mentioned, the short porch in right field, it would be great for him. But Reynolds is definitely that guy where it's a big price tag, but if you could somehow get them to move off of Volpe for that price tag, and the Yankees get him, that would be season changing. That changes everything.
Yeah, I mean, Volpe definitely would be a deal breaker for Cashman. But this farm system is extremely deep. You're talking about Oswald Peraza, Jason Dominguez. I don't think Dominguez or Volpe are really in the mix here, but I do think Peraza is definitely a guy that they'd be willing to give up for a guy like Bryan Reynolds. But you're looking at a much bigger prospect haul than that. Major league talent. I don't know if the Yankees have any like major league talent right now that would be like valued high enough. If you look at Reynolds' value right now, it's tremendous. His upside is insane. So I think it would cost Peraza and probably 3 or 4 other good prospects to get him. Maybe I don't really know. It's hard to put together like a legitimate, like realistic package, but it would be like an embarrassment of riches. I just don't think that Cashman is willing to give up that much for a singular player. I think he'd be more willing to go for a rental like Andrew Benintendi to win the World Series than he would to like go balls to the wall and get a guy like Bryan Reynolds. But is he worth it? You could make a pretty strong argument that he is worth it, right? He's hitting 257 this season with a 34% on base rate, 15 homers and 32 RBIs, like I mentioned before. His hard hit metrics like really match up with what the Yankees love. He's hitting 40.1% hard hit rate with a 6.3% barrel rate. His barrel rate's down about 4% from last season. And his launch angle's a little bit down in addition to that, about 3 degrees. It was about 13.4 degrees last year and 10.6 degrees this year. His launch angle, or rather his exit velocity also down about 1 mile an hour. So I think that if he was to get that launch angle a little bit up, like he was last year, maybe around the 13 to 15 range, and get his barrel percentage up, you're looking at a guy who's probably going to rake in Yankee Stadium, especially from the left side of the plate. With a fly ball ratio of 32.9%, his home run to fly ball, he's hitting 20.5% of his fly balls turn into homers. I'd like to see him get a little bit more under the fly ball category, just a little bit more percentage points higher. But I think that's more or less just the Yankees mantra, right? Like they get guys and they turn them into big time sluggers. And the Yankees have such a strong relationship with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Like, as you saw, we just sent Manny Banuelos to them like a couple days ago for cash considerations. This obviously would be a far more prominent deal. We already got Clay Holmes out of them. Maybe we're like, they got Hoya Sun Park, right? That was his name.
Hoy Jun Park.
Hoy Jun Park. Okay. So
yeah, and they got Tyone too.
And Tyone too. So like we've kind of pillaged them a little bit recently. They might not be willing to trade with us because of that. But I will say, like, if they're going to get a big time haul from the Yankees and really just eat their farm system alive, I think they would be willing to bite. The question is, do the Yankees want to win now, or are they looking about their long-term future, right? I think this is really ultimately what it boils down to. Peraza, I don't think anyone really sees him as a long-term solution at shortstop. I think that everyone's just looking at Volpe down the road. But if the Yankees, I'll ask you this question, because this is really what the question is. Would you be willing to potentially sacrifice the future of the team to win 1 or 2 World Series in the next 2 to 3 years? Maybe even more than that, because if they get Aaron Judge back, you're still maintaining most of your strong points. Like, would you be willing to sacrifice maybe the future, like the long-term future, for the short-term success?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a prospect hugger by any means, but I'm also not going to trade Anthony Volpe before because he's going to be a number 1 prospect at some point, right? The value for him is still rising. I'm not sold on trading him at is not at his highest value. When I still think that value can go up. Like, let's say he's been hitting really well. He's an 800 OPS in AA right now. That goes up, and he decides, and he goes to AAA, and he starts raking. Like, is he not more valuable because you have a better chance of him being a star player with more information on him at higher levels of the minor leagues, right? If they weren't willing to offer him or dangle him for a guy like Jose Ramirez, who I think is a top 10 player in baseball pretty easily, top 5, maybe even the best player in baseball, why would they be willing to do it for Reynolds? I think Reynolds is great. Don't get me wrong. I think everyone watching this video, every Yankee fan can tell you Bryan Reynolds is amazing. But the Pirates have no reason to move off of the Volpe price point. The Yankees have no reason to trade Volpe for Reynolds. And how much better are you going to get with Bryan Reynolds versus Ian Happ in comparison to what you're going to trade? I guess that's kind of another question you ask yourself, right? Is Bryan Reynolds going to post a far greater wins above replacement this season or for the second half than Ian Happ will in the second half? And if you find that answer, that's a personal like, there's no objective answer to that because we can't predict the future. But the chances are it's not going to be worth trading Anthony Volpe versus trading like Everson Pereira. So again, I'm fine trading top prospects. I'm just not fine trading Volpe, knowing the Yankees don't really have a current day shortstop option, and the fact that Volpe is, he's not a number 1 prospect yet in terms of number 1 in all of baseball, and he still maybe could get to that point, and so his value is still rising.
Yeah, I agree. I think you look like Estevan Florial, for example, once was considered one of those guys up there, top 5, top 10, and then just the injuries hit and really hurt his value overall. Now it's probably at a high again. And by the way, Cashman did mention that yesterday, specifically with Florial and Miguel Andujar, said that other teams have noticed how well they're playing in AAA. So, I mean, that screams to me that they're both trade chips. But, I do agree with you. But the other question here to ask is, do you think that starting pitching could be a bigger issue, or do you think the outfield is a bigger issue? Like, if you were offering the same package for, let's say, Ian Happ as you were going to offer for Luis Castillo, like, which guy are you going for?
If the Reds and Cubs both say, okay, we want the same exact package, right? I'm getting Luis Castillo. And the reason is simple, because I can go out and get an Andrew Benintendi for pretty cheap and walk away from the deadline with Benintendi and Castillo. And I'm a much better team than if I walk away from the deadline with Ian Happ. And, you look at the rotation, there's not a number 4 or 5 guy in that rotation. There are a bunch of number 3s and 2s, right? And then Garrett Cole. How can you walk away from the deadline with a number 4 starter as your acquisition? You wouldn't even make the rotation, right? So I look at it and I say, if I'd rather have Bryan Reynolds or Luis Castillo, I'd rather have Bryan Reynolds. But if I'd rather have Luis Castillo or Ian Happ, I'd rather have Luis Castillo. So it's a matter of Reynolds might just be the Pirates rightfully going to ask for more than what the Yankees are willing to give. If they ever move off that price point, I think Reynolds is on his way out. If his price point drops even a little bit. And there are enough alternatives on the market where the Yankees don't have to get Reynolds to get a lot better.
Right. Yeah, I think that's pretty reasonable. But guys, I'd love to hear your opinions below in the YouTube comments about Bryan Reynolds. Would you be willing to offer up a big contract, a big rather trade haul of prospects to acquire a player this good and really solve an outfield spot? Like I mentioned before, there's a couple arguments to make, regarding if Aaron Judge ends up leaving free agency, at least you have a young, nice prospect who can really hold it down in the outfield and be a really great offensive weapon for this team moving forward. Maybe you have both players, maybe Judge and Reynolds, and your outfield looks unbelievable for the next 5 years. So it's like there's a lot to like about the idea, but you're also going to pillage your own village trying to acquire a player that has an unbelievable amount of value right now. But like you mentioned before, Ian Happ might be a little bit more affordable in terms of he doesn't have as much team control. I think he has the rest of the season and then next year until he becomes a free agent. So, there is an argument to be made that you're not going to have to give up the whole farm for Ian Happ, but you're going to have to give up the farm for Bryan Reynolds. So arguments, that I'd love to hear your opinions of in the comment section below. As always, make sure to like and subscribe if you want more trade deadline stuff and daily updates, post-game recaps. You got covered with everything, specific player breakdowns. And right after this, we're going to record one about Wandy Peralta and how well he's been playing as of late. So make sure to tune in for that as well. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.